She was not born loud. She was not born fearless. She was born into a world that decided her limits before she learned her name. From the very beginning, people looked at her like a mistake. Too different, too stubborn, too quiet, too much. She did not fit into the shape society loved, and for that reason alone, she became a problem. They watched her walk with dreams in her eyes and called it arrogance. They saw her silence and called it weakness. They saw her courage and called it rebellion. Everywhere she went, doors closed softly at first, then loudly, then without explanation. Family whispered, neighbors judged, friends slowly disappeared. She learned early that belonging was conditional, that respect was rented, that love was offered only when you obeyed. She tried. She really tried. She bent her voice, she softened her opinions, she shrank her dreams until they barely breathed. But even that was never enough. Because society does not forgive women who think, and it never forgets women who refuse to break. There were nights when she questioned herself, when rejection echoed so loudly it felt like truth, when she wondered if silence would finally buy her peace. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet fire refused to die. It did not roar, it did not shout, it simply stayed. She started walking alone, not because she wanted to, but because there was no one willing to walk beside her. Every step felt heavy, every stare felt sharp, every failure felt public. People pointed, people laughed, people warned her to stop. They said, "This world is not made for women like you. This path ends in regret. This courage will destroy you." And for a long time, it almost did. She lost opportunities, she lost relationships, she lost years trying to prove she deserved space. But what she never lost was purpose. While society watched her fall, she was learning how to stand. While they called her names, she was building skills. While they doubted her worth, she was discovering it. No applause followed her effort, no encouragement softened her struggle. Only resistance, only loneliness, only faith in something unseen. And that faith became her anchor. Not faith in people, not faith in approval, but faith in the idea that truth does not need permission. Time passed, slowly, painfully, quietly. And then something changed. Not the world, not society. She did. She stopped asking to be accepted. She stopped explaining herself. She stopped carrying the burden of other people's comfort. She focused, worked, failed, stood back up. Again and again and again. Without noise, without validation. Results followed her silence. Small at first, almost invisible, but real. A success here, a recognition there, a difference she could measure not in praise, but in impact. People who once ignored her started noticing. People who mocked her started questioning themselves. But still, no apologies came. Society rarely apologizes to women it breaks. Years later, her name appeared where her silence once lived. Her work spoke in rooms she was never allowed to enter. Her impact reached people who never knew her pain. Suddenly, the same society that rejected her wanted to claim her. They called her inspirational. They called her brave. They called her history. But history remembered something else. It remembered the nights she cried without witnesses. It remembered the strength it took to survive without support. It remembered the cost of becoming respected. Because respect did not come when she needed it. It came when she no longer needed it. She did not win because society changed. She won because she refused to disappear. And that is the truth they never tell you. That the women history celebrates were often the women society tried to erase. That greatness is not born from approval, but from persistence in isolation. That rejection is not the opposite of success, it is often the beginning of it. If you are listening to this and you feel unseen, unwanted, unaccepted, know this. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not wrong. You are simply early. And history has always belonged to the ones who survived rejection long enough to be remembered. She was rejected by society, but respected by history. And maybe so will you. The days that followed felt unreal. She woke up in unfamiliar rooms, surrounded by locked doors and strange faces. Her sense of time slowly disappeared. Morning and night had no meaning, only commands, only fear. She was told this was her life now. She was told resistance was useless. She was told no one would save her. At first, she cried silently. She begged quietly. She hoped desperately. But hope was dangerous in that place. Every move was watched. Every word was controlled. Her body no longer felt like her own. She learned the rules quickly. Follow orders, do not ask questions, do not show emotion. Punishment followed mistakes. Pain followed defiance. She realized this was not just happening to her. There were other girls, some younger, some older, all broken in different ways. They shared looks instead of words. Fear bonded them. Silence protected them. She saw how the system worked, how people paid, how traffickers profited, how society ignored the signs. She understood something terrifying. This world existed because no one wanted to see it. The nights were the hardest. Darkness brought memories, faces from her past, a life that felt stolen. She thought about school, about simple things like walking freely, laughing without fear, sleeping without nightmares. Sometimes she imagined running, but escape felt impossible. They told her she was nothing. They told her she was worthless. They told her no one would believe her. Slowly, their words tried to replace her identity, but inside her something resisted, a quiet refusal to disappear. She watched carefully. She listened. She learned. She learned which doors stayed unlocked the longest, which guards were careless, which moments were less watched. Survival became strategy. She promised herself something in silence. If she ever got out, she would not disappear. She would not stay quiet. She would speak for every girl who could not. Even when fear tried to crush her, that promise stayed alive. Weeks turned into months. Months felt endless. Her body was trapped, but her mind was preparing. She did not know when, she did not know how, but she knew one thing. This was not the end. Somewhere beyond the locked doors, freedom still existed, and one day she would reach it. She spent countless nights planning quietly in her mind, every day observing routines, every moment memorizing patterns. Every small mistake by the guards became a potential opportunity. She knew one wrong move could cost her everything, her life, her chance, her voice. But fear could not stop her. Her promise to herself burned brighter than the chains around her. One night, the guard fell asleep earlier than usual. The doors that were usually locked remained slightly open. Her heart raced, but her mind was calm. She had waited for this moment for months. She moved silently, step by careful step, breathing slowly, hoping the floor would not creak, hoping the shadows would hide her. She ran, down long corridors, through empty rooms. Every echo of her footsteps felt like thunder in her chest. Outside the building, the night air hit her face, cool and real. She ran faster. Every street and alley became a path to freedom, every step a rebellion against the fear that had controlled her life. Finally, she reached a familiar area, a place she recognized from a photograph on her phone. She knew people might see her, but it was worth the risk. She found a small diner. She went inside, trembling, asked to use the phone, her voice barely audible. A stranger listened, offered help. The authorities were called. Questions were asked. Stories were told. Her story, the the story she had kept locked in silence for months. It was the first time she spoke about her life, the first time she named the horrors, the first time she felt that her words could matter. Recovery began slowly. Every day she learned how to live again, how to trust, how to sleep without fear, how to walk without looking over her shoulder. She started therapy. Counselors helped her face memories. Support groups reminded her she was not alone. Little by little, the girl who had been silenced started finding her voice. But she knew survival was not enough. Her promise demanded action. She began reading about human trafficking laws, about victims who never escaped, about the ways the system failed girls like her. She realized her story was powerful. It could educate, it could inspire, it could prevent others from suffering. Once she was free, she realized that surviving was only the beginning. The next challenge was transforming pain into purpose. She wanted to make sure no other girl would suffer in silence. She wanted to make sure predators could not hide behind shadows. She started small, speaking in support groups, sharing her story with other survivors. Her voice trembled at first, but every word she spoke strengthened her resolve. People began to listen. People began to understand. She realized the power of testimony. Her experiences became tools for change. Her pain became a message. Soon, she connected with nonprofit organizations, groups fighting human trafficking. They welcomed her courage and insight. She trained volunteers, helped rescue victims, guided girls through recovery. Her life was now dedicated to protecting others. She traveled across the country, speaking in schools, warning teens about online dangers. She shared strategies she had used to recognize predators. Her speeches were raw and honest. They were emotional and real. She did not sugarcoat the horrors. She did not hide the fear she had felt. Her activism caught the attention of media. Interviews were conducted, articles were written. She became a symbol of courage, a living proof that survivors can change the system. She also started working on legislation, meeting with lawmakers, sharing stories from survivors, advocating for stricter laws against traffickers, better resources for victims. Her efforts slowly started creating change. The more she spoke, the more she healed. Her past no longer defined her. It fueled her. It gave her strength. It gave her purpose. She inspired other survivors to speak. She inspired communities to pay attention. She inspired lawmakers to act. Her life became a mission. Her story became a tool. Her courage became contagious. And through it all, she remembered the promise she had made in silence. She had said she would not stay quiet. She had said she would fight. She had said she would protect others. Every speech, every rescue, every law she influenced was a step toward fulfilling that promise. Her transformation was complete. The girl who was once trapped and silenced became a leader, a voice, a warrior for justice. Even as she became a public figure and a source of hope, she faced battles she had never anticipated. The legal system was slow and flawed. Traffickers tried to hide behind loopholes. Some officials doubted the survivors, and society sometimes blamed the victims. But she refused to be discouraged. She studied laws, she worked with attorneys, she learned every detail about human trafficking regulations. She prepared herself to challenge the system. She testified in court, her voice unwavering, her eyes reflecting the pain she had endured. Every word she spoke brought justice closer. Every detail she revealed exposed the cruelty of those who had hurt her and others. She faced intimidation. Threats came her way, anonymous calls, warnings to stay silent. But she refused. Fear no longer controlled her. She built a network of supporters, other survivors, activists, lawyers, community leaders. Together, they fought tirelessly. Together, they educated the public. Together, they pressured lawmakers to strengthen protections. Her advocacy led to changes. Schools implemented awareness programs, law enforcement began specialized training, shelters received more funding. Victims finally received attention and care. She also created a personal initiative, a safe space where girls could speak without fear, a hotline for immediate help, workshops teaching self-defense and online safety, mentorship programs to rebuild confidence and trust. Every girl she helped reminded her of herself. The 15-year-old who had been silenced, the girl who had run through the night with nothing but hope, the survivor who had promised herself she would fight. Her activism became more than a mission. It became a movement that crossed state lines, a movement that inspired millions. She traveled from city to city, speaking in front of schools and universities, appearing on national television, participating in panels with government officials. Every platform amplified her message. Through every speech, through every initiative, through every court case, she remembered the nights in darkness. She remembered the chains. She remembered the fear, and she used that memory as fuel to never give up. The girl who had once been invisible was now impossible to ignore.
As her story spread across the country, she realized the impact of her journey was greater than she had ever imagined. Young girls wrote to her. Parents thanked her. Communities invited her to speak. Her voice became a beacon of hope. She knew the fight was not just about laws or rescues. It was about changing hearts and minds, about teaching empathy, about empowering survivors, about preventing exploitation before it started. She began collaborating with schools, designing programs to teach students how to recognize danger, how to trust their instincts, how to support friends who might be in trouble. She created age-appropriate workshops, using real-life examples without exposing trauma. Every session emphasized courage and awareness. She also began mentoring survivors, guiding them through recovery, helping them find jobs and education. She reminded them that their past did not define them, that their voices mattered, that their strength could inspire others. Media outlets featured her story. Documentaries followed her journey. Her interviews reached millions. Every story highlighted the resilience of survivors. Every feature humanized the struggle. Every platform encouraged action. She also addressed the broader public, explaining how human trafficking is not only a distant problem, it exists in cities and towns across the United States. She urged communities to stay vigilant, to report suspicious activity, to support organizations fighting trafficking. Through her work, she built a community, a network of survivors helping survivors, a coalition of advocates fighting for justice, a generation inspired to act with courage. She spoke at conferences, she met with policymakers, she testified before committees. Her words carried the weight of lived experience. They demanded attention and change. Even as she accomplished so much, she stayed humble. She never forgot the nights she ran through darkness. She never forgot the fear that had tried to silence her. She remembered the promise she had made to herself, and every day she lived that promise. Every rescue, every speech, every law changed, every girl she mentored, her story became a symbol, a story of survival, a story of courage, a story proving that even the most vulnerable can rise to become the strongest. The girl who had been trapped at 15, the girl who had been silenced and broken, had become a leader, a teacher, a warrior for justice, a beacon for a generation. Years passed, and her influence only grew stronger. The girl who had once been 15 and lost had become a woman whose voice could not be ignored. Her story was no longer just her own. It belonged to every survivor, every girl at risk, every community striving for change. She continued to speak, to teach, to fight. Her activism expanded beyond human trafficking. She addressed systemic issues that allowed exploitation to continue. She worked on education programs. She helped create shelters. She guided survivors to leadership roles. Her goal was clear: to empower others to find their voices and strength. She inspired lawmakers to implement stricter laws, to fund victim services, to provide resources for prevention. Her testimony in courts led to convictions. Her advocacy saved lives. Her courage created change. But she never forgot the personal journey. The nights she ran through the darkness, the fear that almost crushed her, the silence that had once held her captive. Every scar, every memory, every tear became part of her power. She wrote a book detailing her experiences, not for sympathy, not for attention, but to give hope and guidance to those still trapped. The book became a tool, used in schools, used in support groups, used by activists around the country. Her legacy was not just the laws changed or the programs created or the lives rescued. Her legacy was the message she embodied, that courage can rise from pain, that survival can transform into activism, that one person's voice can create a movement. She became a mentor, a leader, a symbol. And in every community she touched, girls and women saw a reflection of what was possible, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope can survive, strength can grow, and one brave heart can change the world. Her story ended not in silence, not in fear, not in defeat. It ended in victory. A victory that was shared with every survivor, every child, every community that chose to listen, every person who believed that courage can overcome cruelty. She had escaped the chains of human trafficking, but more importantly, she had broken the chains of silence and fear. She had chosen to be brave. She had chosen to be a voice. She had chosen to change the world. And her story lives on. Every time someone speaks up, every time someone rescues a victim, every time a law is strengthened, every time courage triumphs over fear. The girl who was once lost was never truly lost. She was becoming a legend, a living proof that even the smallest spark of hope can ignite a revolution of change.